What's going on, everyone? This is Damien from Lore Seekers, and today we're doing our first tier list. Help! I mean, hopefully it goes well. So these I went through a lot of data, usually looking at 40 plus player events, to try to find which are the best decks in the meta. And it's not like pulling something random and saying like, hey, this is the best deck, go check it out. So it's trying to discern what's good and what isn't. So yeah, here we go. Roll the video. Alright everyone, so I'm here with the tier list and a couple of things. First off, this is the first Lorcana tier list that I'm doing. I'm feeling very not confident in doing this. I'm not super confident. Hopefully I don't mess it up too bad. Don't be too harsh, please. Second, why we're using only symbols instead of decks. So here's why. If you pay attention to all of the meta results, what you will see is that it's usually one deck in a color combination, for example Steelsong and Cisu, or it's multiple decks in a color combination performing equally, basically. For example, Blurple Control and Blurple just bounce version, they still perform around the same. So that's why we just use a symbol instead of using, a card to sit there as a deck. I think that's the best way to do it at the moment. However, this is the first Lorcana tier list that I'm doing, so please bear with me and leave your opinions in the comments to help me improve after we go, because we're gonna be doing another one when we go into like set 6 and stuff like that. Anyway, let's go over the tiers. So tier 0 OP should be banned, nothing goes here. Tier, that's like Bucky in less set, right? Tier 1 meta defining, the cream of the crop, the best ones. So the best, flat out the best performing decks in the meta. We have a couple of those. These have the highest results, the most often toppings and stuff like that. Tier 2 competitive, so these are the decks which can get you high placings at events. They do very well against tier 1 decks. They can't beat them 100% of the time, but they do very well and they are stronger. Usually they have a favorable matchup result wise in comparison to tier 3 and other tiers. These are your second best options. Tier 3 is Rogue, so these are the decks that you can do well with if you play very, very well. It's kind of pilot skill dependent. They don't have as many results. Some of them have some results. They just they can top, but they won't do that often. It's like the odd one Jafar that shows up somewhere. So that would be a rogue deck. Tier 4 casual. There's nothing bad with being a casual deck. Please keep that in mind. There's just flat out nothing bad with that. It's just not a deck that you would necessarily take to a DLC. And then finally, we have tier 5, which is bad, just bad. So these are just bad. And there's one of them. So let's start with the first one. Okay, here we go. Damien, don't mess it up. Okay, Ember Amethyst, MM. There's only one MM deck at the moment, and that is the Hyper Aggro one. Looking at results, result-wise, I only take into consideration events that had over 40 players. So result-wise, MM, Aggro. Okay, let me see. I have my own file with them. I think it does relatively okay. It does. It did relatively okay. However, it got only 2 tops since the very start of the meta on these higher 40 plus player events. I think there is still potential in this. However, I feel like a lot of the meta is tailored around it. There was so much buzz about this Hyper Aggro version with the Daisy that I think, at least when I read comments, it's usually players from various events talking about how, yeah, there was hyper aggro in the room. There definitely was hyper aggro there, but it doesn't perform well, and that's it. So with two tops, I think that we are far enough in the meta to say that hyper aggro, while strong, I don't think that it's super competitive. I think that it can be competitive. I am on the border of placing it in rogue, but I think that we can say competitive. It can top, it just doesn't top as often. Well, looking at some results, it topped less than the majority of decks, but so I would put him in rogue actually. I see we already start by triggering people. I'm pretty sure that some of you who play competitively are now looking at me like, is this guy insane? But two tops so far. So we have, okay, then we have Amber Emerald. We have two versions. There is the aggro version, and there is the sync together. They have both performed relatively equally. Looking at, if you look at results, basically sync together has stopped 4 times, and I think that I have actually piled them together. Oh no, there is Amber Emerald aggro topped once. So overall, I think the deck, for example, if you compare it to aggro, it does better, and currently it has the best discard deck in the game at the moment, now with Bucky gone. So if you're looking to go at an event, I would definitely put this one into the competitive tier. I think it's definitely a glimmer combination, either sync together or aggro. They have both performed relatively equally. I would consider it. I would definitely consider it. Then we have Mufasa. That's it. That's the color combination. It is Mufasa. So what do we do with Mufasa? Okay. Mufasa did win technically one event, though there wasn't top 8, it was the first in Swiss. And it showed up, I think, like 2 more times. I think it showed up like 2 more times. No, actually more. Mufasa topped 4 times. With 4 tops in the last couple of events, I think this deck has proven itself to be competitive. I think that it is competitive. Might it not be your first choice, but it can obviously perform well at these events. Then we have our first tier 1. Tier 1 is Steelsong. I don't think anyone is going to say that it's otherwise. Steelsong is, in my opinion, it is the second best deck in the meta. Just looking at pure results, it's either the first or the second deck in the meta game. It had topped 14 times since the start of the meta. It won several times and it topped 14 if we look at 40 plus size events. So Steelsong is definitely up there as the best deck in the game. You know what's not the best deck in the game? This wing. Any in this combination, anything is bad. It's just bad. Ember Sapphire, I love the color combination, but at the moment, there's nothing. There is nothing. The Queen build is fun, but that's it. If you go Queen in this combination, everything else is, well, you can try something with songs, you can try something with heroes if you want, but nothing is really performing. So I would not even put this one into casual. I think this one is just bad. I think this one is just bad. Then we get to Emerald Ruby, and honestly, looking at which decks to build for the channel, right? I went through Dreamborn, I went through results. It's one of these combinations that I just kind of forget exists. I forget that this exists. So, I think that Emerald Ruby, like, I'm new to the game. I don't have that much experience. There is a neat deck that we will put out. probably this week or next week. There is a very high dex basically build where you combine hand destruction and you combine the lore drain ability of red, and then you just kind of have this hard denial build. But even that, I don't think that even that is something. I feel like there's nothing here. I feel like there is nothing here. Okay. Actually, I mean, I still feel a bit bad about putting like these in bad. You know, I think queen can be casual, and I think maybe this can as well. So okay. Now we're looking at Amber Emerald. Amber Emerald is a competitive deck. It's definitely a competitive deck. If you're hearing any noises behind me, well, that's my cat. So it's definitely a competitive deck. There is a bounce version with Mother Gothel, and that one did very reasonably well. It topped 6 times so far. So I wouldn't put it in meta-defining category. I think that the combination has enough tools to go into tier 2. Then we're looking at I love green-blue. I love green-blue, like in any card game. But here there is Muses. To be fair, there are Muses. And Muses did top a couple of times. Like Muses song did top a couple of times. So I would put this one into Rogue. I think that this is the color combination that should be going into the Rogue tier. Simply based on results. So Muses song topped a few times. I don't think that it topped any less than MM Aggro did. Though MM Aggro is still stronger in theory, but result-wise they're somewhere, right? They are somewhat equal. So I think it should go like this. Now we're looking at Emerald Steel. This is, for those of you who don't know, I'm very, very new to this. And I unfortunately didn't play much during the Bucky era. I've practiced with a teammate of mine. He wanted to practice for competitive events. But I've missed the golden days of this card. I missed the golden days of hand destruction. Which hurts me a lot because those of you who know me from other channel, I love hand destruction. I absolutely love hand destruction. However, hand destruction, unfortunately, even with Prince John's Mirror, which is really interesting, the Mirror isn't seeing any play at all. It shows up very rarely, and it shows up as like one-off in a deck. The hand destruction in a way that we knew it doesn't exist anymore. Not the like super hard, super fast version. There are discard aggro decks out there, and there are damage banish decks. I have seen a couple of those. There was one at the PPG side event. So that was like the new face of Emerald Steel. Do they perform well though? How often have they topped? Not a lot. And I think that this is a color that is still trying to get, not its relevancy, but more it's trying to get its footing in the new landscape. So it's either between, damage or it's high damage banish or it's hyper aggro. It's one of those two. In total, the color combination topped 3 times. So, I mean, there are some results here, right? But I don't think that it is competitive. I think that it still falls into rogue category. I don't think that it's any necessarily better or worse than any of the other decks. I feel like Hyper Aggro is still the best one in the rogue category. So Emerald Steel probably belongs there, just purely based on results. Now we reach the one. I felt bad about placing the 2 decks in tier 4 into tier 5. I felt bad about it. I know that casually they can be very fun. You can play princesses, you can play queens in yellow blue, you can play the weird super tax, super denial deck that we're gonna have out tomorrow or next week. But with this thing, Ruby Steel, I think this is the worst color combination in the game. I I think this is the worst color combination in game. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Was this color combination ever good? I'm more asking because I'm new. I want to know. But just going through Dreamborn, going through decks, going through. I mean, result-wise, there's nothing here. But just scanning the internet, looking for something, there is nothing here. Still just kind of doesn't do anything. That's one of my biggest issues. The best that Steel can do, yeah, it's good at challenging. It's absolutely good and challenging, and you have a whole new world, which is an absurd card. But other than that, what do you combine it with Ruby? Ruby has its restands. That's one of the stronger things, I think. Here and there are some restands that are very, very good. You have, what do you have? You have some pirates. You can try with that. You do have your be prepared. So maybe try something more control-ish. You have your goofs. And knights is one of the things that's being looked at. But I don't think like there's anything here. Even to call it a casual deck, I don't feel like there's anything for this color combination. I hope that I'm wrong and that some of you can correct me. Blurple. It's a bit of a mouthful, so Blurple. So there are two versions of Blurple. So there is the bounce version and there is the control version. Neither of them doing particularly good. But I think there are three tops spread across them. So I was just doing a spreadsheet today. There are three tops spread across them. I think Blurple is, I think it's cool. I think it maybe needs a couple of more tools, like something more in the high end to really switch the game. Not necessarily switch the game into our favor. The idea is that other bounce decks offer a lot. They feel like they offer a bit more. That's it. Like Blurple has your Merlin, it has your Mufasa. Those cards are phenomenal. But at the moment, if you play bounce, you play Ruby Amethyst. Or you play Amethyst Emerald. The color combination is very close, I believe. I think it just needs one game-breakingly powerful card. And then you'll be good to go. We'll just play your Merlin, grab it, and let's go. So with three tops so far, that qualifies it. That definitely qualifies it as a rogue deck. By the way, we're not doing the left to right thing. So, but if we were, actually we can do it like this. It's definitely up here. And this goes like here. Yeah. So then we have Cisu. That's the color combination. It's Cisu, and this deck is tier 1. It is the best deck in the game. You can quote me on this. I might be wrong. Some of you might disagree with me, but result-wise, this is the best deck in the game. Cisu has an extreme number of first places. It topped 17 times in the think about 10 events which had 40 plus players. It tops always. There is always a Cisu deck in the top 8, at least one. Like this deck is a monster to fight, and it has the best results in the current metagame. So I think that, yeah, Cisu just goes into tier 1, there's not much to say. Then we go to Sapphire Steel, Cogsworth and Friends items. Just looking at them, for example, if we look at Cogsworth, 3 tops. Okay. If we look at anything else, not necessarily. So it's mostly Cogsworth and Friends builds. But free tops, that's well. That's good. That's definitely not bad. It's on the same level as anything else in the Rogue tier at the moment. So I think that, you can place it here. You can definitely place the deck here. Ruby, Amethyst, Bounce. Tier 1. I think this is also tier 1. When you look at the decks which performed the best, it's Cisu with 17 tops, then it is Steel Song with 14 tops, and then it is Bounce with Ruby Amethyst Bounce with 13. So yeah, and nothing else is remotely close. The closest other deck is Ember Emerald. No, not Ember Emerald. Amethyst Emerald Bounce. That's the next best deck, and that one only had 8 tops. So if you look at the metagame, if you look at tier 1, it's a triangle basically. It's 3 decks, and that's it. Cisu, Steel Song, and Bounce. So the 3 decks that you're looking to either bring to an event or you're trying to beat them. And finally, for Rogue tier, well, this one is a bit... So, this one is the only tricky one. And that is because it has multiple versions. It has more versions than anything else. You have your... you have Amethyst Steel, which topped twice. That's a Bounce version. Then you have Aggro version, which also a bit more aggressive build, which also topped twice. Then you have Brooms, which topped once. Then you have Jafar, which topped twice. So it's the most difficult one to actually evaluate, because all of these other ones have like 1 or 2 decks. But this one is all over the place. It's all over the place. Not a single version had performed super well, but all of them got several tops except for Brooms. Brooms got 1, and that's cool. Like, it's always, no one can be mad when Brooms top. But if we look at just the color combination, where do we put it? That's a big one. Where do you put it based on results? Based on results, I think that it's Rogue as well. I think that it can go like... It definitely goes here. Because the general idea is that it got a couple of tops, but they're spread too wide. Not too wide, among too many different decks. Like I've said, if we look at tier 1, we know exactly which decks we're talking about. Same for tier 2. For tier 3, it can just be like Brooms are casual, but Jafar topped some events. Bounce topped some events, but not as much as tier 2. So I think it's okay like this. Anyways, yeah. There goes nothing. This is the tier list. That's it for the video. Please don't tear me apart in the comments. So what do you think of the first tier list that we've made? So do you agree with some choices? Do you disagree? If you've been playing competitively this game for a long while, you probably know much better than I do. But yeah, let me know in the comments. I'm looking to learn, and I appreciate any feedback. So let me know in the comments. I read all of your comments. I try to respond to everything. I love our little community. And while you're here, share the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons, help us get to 500 subs when we're gonna have a giveaway. This has been Damien from Lore Seekers, and I'll see all of you in the next video.